We have all the latest rumor updates ahead of the NHL trade deadline, which is only a few days away. Today we have the latest on guys like Chychrun, Erik Karlsson. The Toronto Maple Leafs made another big deal today. Are they done, or are they going to continue pushing for yet another deal? Plus, Darren Dreger says the Habs and the Oilers are discussing a trade as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here, Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL trade rumor updates to take a look at ahead of the deadline and some other NHL news to take a look at as well. First up, we have news from the NHL waiver wire. We have the Buffalo Sabres have a goaltender on waivers today. That's veteran Michael Hauser, who is primarily a minor leaguer, but Hauser has been signed to a one-year contract for the rest of the year at the NHL level, so he needs waivers to be cleared to be brought up to the NHL roster. So I would suspect he likely clears and can be reassigned by Buffalo. So he signs 1 year, $750 for the rest of the season. And newly acquired defenseman Scott Harrington, who came to the Devils along with Timo Meier in a blockbuster trade yesterday, is on waivers for the New Jersey Devils as well. So he'll either be reassigned to the Devils American Hockey League affiliate or could be claimed by another NHL franchise. We will find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if either of these guys can be claimed or if they're going to be reassigned by their NHL clubs. Now, we saw a situation which I'm surprised hasn't led to a suspension, but last night between the New York Rangers and the Los Angeles Kings, we saw Rangers defenseman Andre Miller get kicked out of the game for spitting. They called it unsportsmanlike conduct, and he was ejected from the game as during a scrum he spit at Kings defenseman Drew Doughty. Now, he has since put out a statement basically apologizing, saying he takes responsibility. Apparently he talked to Doughty after the game and apologized for what had happened. But we have seen situations like this before lead to suspensions, but I haven't seen anything from NHL player safety on this as of yet. So I suspect that nothing is going to come from it. So interesting that the standard has changed in that regard. Not something you want to see. Pretty gross, pretty disgusting, and completely uncalled for. I really like Andre Miller. He's a heck of a young player, but that's not something you want to be known for, and I hope he learned his lesson not to do that again. On to some other injury updates. We have an update on Sean Monahan. It's not a substantial update, just that we're going to know more sometime this week. Sean Monahan has not played in some time for Montreal. Had a great start, started generating a lot of buzz that he could be a good trade deadline piece for Montreal to flip for maybe a high pick or a good prospect or something of that nature. It was drawing interest from other teams that might need help at the center position. And then he got hurt, and he's been out for a long time. And there's some wondering if he's dealing with multiple injuries here. But Elliotte Friedman's reporting that he expects there to be more clarity sometime this week on his future. The odds of him being traded now by the deadline are probably pretty slim, given the fact that he has not played and is still not healthy. So I would suspect that Montreal, if they don't trade him, because they likely won't, because the interest is not going to be there like it was earlier in the year, that they likely try to extend him for another season and maybe try this again next year if he can get through next season and stay healthy. JT Miller, the Vancouver Canucks, is not going to be going with the Canucks on the road trip, and is going to be out for about a week's time dealing with an injury. There were some wondering if this was a cover-up by Vancouver, that he was actually being held out for trade-related reasons like we've seen other NHL players, and that does not appear to be the case. There is a slim chance that Miller gets traded, but according to Elliotte Friedman, he feels the odds of Miller being traded before this year's deadline is extremely low. But again, things can change with a phone call, and crazier things have happened, as they tend to say. Now, we also seen another minor trade late last night as well. It was announced, but by that point, we had already done 7 videos. This was a minor enough deal. I thought I would just put it in the news video for the day. But the Philadelphia Flyers had traded one of their drafted prospects, Isaac Ratcliffe, to the Nashville Predators for basically nothing. They called it future considerations. Ratcliffe was a 2017 second-round pick, 24 years old, been playing in the pro level, mostly the American Hockey League level, for like 3 or 4 years now. I think he has around 8 or 10 NHL games, but hasn't really found a consistent rhythm and has struggled. Hopefully a fresh start will get him reignited and see if he can salvage some of that potential he showed in junior when he was drafted fairly high, and see if he can get some NHL games with Nashville coming up. Now, with a lot of the moves we've seen, we saw another big substantial Leaf trade today, play off another fairly big blockbuster deal with Chicago, getting Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty. The Leafs are not fooling around. They've spent a lot of draft capital, some prospects, but they've got a lot of good players added to their lineup. That much we know for sure, but there's still lots of names out there still that could be dealt, and a lot of the big names have actually already been moved. So it'd be interesting to see what deadline day is actually like. But what's the latest, for example, on Erik Karlsson? Is there any chance we could see a blockbuster trade involving the Sharks D-man, who certainly has generated a buzz since it became known earlier this year that he could be available for trade and would be willing to waive his no-trade clause for the right opportunity? Of course, he makes a ton of money, which makes it extremely difficult, along with a good amount of term left on his contract. But GM of the Sharks, Mike Grier, has said that there's a pretty good chance that Erik Karlsson could still be with the team through the rest of the NHL season. But based on his tone and words he chose carefully, I think it's fair to say they will definitely re-examine or re-explore the possibility of trading Erik Karlsson in the offseason when teams have a little bit more flexibility. But he said also that if teams have been showing interest, and if they step up for the right offer, they'll definitely consider it. He wouldn't rule it out. He just said he felt that the odds of him staying for the rest of the year were pretty good. So we'll have to see, but Karlsson, I think at some point is hoping to find himself a new home, but it might have to wait a little bit. He did make comments today after the Timo Meier trade took place, kind of outlining that he doesn't feel like it's going to be a quick turnaround with the Sharks. And, he understands the business and all that, but, not really pleased, you could tell, with the direction of the franchise based on his comments. So I think he's going to probably push a little harder for a trade when we get to the summer if nothing materializes in the next couple of days. Now, with Jakob Chychrun, of course, he's been sitting out waiting for a while. Like, when's this deal ever going to go down? I've seen some reports today from a variety of NHL reporters saying that the Buffalo Sabres were very much in the mix. But again, like a lot of the other teams, don't want to pay the price. They still find the price too high. Ottawa apparently has jumped back into the Chychrun mix, so they're still searching hard for a defenseman, but still the price has not changed enough for their liking either. So we'll have to see. I mean, there's been other reports that, the deal with LA is pretty much dead, but not necessarily 100%. Like, they could be, trade talks could pick back up. There's other teams out there, like Washington now has a bunch of draft capital after making a deal with St. Louis Blues. Obviously have some more draft capital as well. They are expected to be involved in the Chychrun's sweepstakes because they don't want to go into a deep rebuild. They're trying to retool on the fly, and adding a 24-year-old defenseman with a few years of term and the skill that he has would be a good acquisition. So don't be surprised to see those teams who have made trades picking up extra first-round picks trying to flip those for his services. That's quite a possibility here as well. Looking at Darren Dreger now, he's reporting that the Montreal Canadiens and the Edmonton Oilers continue to have discussions centered around Habs defenseman Joel Edmondson. Apparently there's some reports out there saying that Edmonton's also wants to consider Matthias Ekholm in Nashville if they can work out a trade for him. But certainly a case of Montreal and Edmonton. This has come up numerous times in NHL rumor mill reports over the last couple of months. Edmonton has not played a whole lot, and other insiders have suggested that Edmonton's trade value is probably not overly high, and the chances of him being traded are lower because of the fact that he's been out for so long and hasn't played much. So we will see. I mean, there is a possibility he could play soon now. I believe it's looking like he's going to be on the road with Montreal coming up, and then he could play in the next little while. So we'll have to wait and see. But, there's no doubt in my mind the rumors we've heard about the Edmonton Oilers wanting to add on defense likely are true. He could be one of the players they're looking at, but I would imagine that there's a variety of them, and I don't know how they're going to value him compared to some other guys that have been more active and playing more right now. So we'll see. I mean, he's a big body. He's got lots of experience, good playoff warrior, but he's had a hard time staying healthy the last couple of years. So we'll have to see if anything materializes on that front as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs appear to not really be done just yet. I mean, they've added a lot so far, but there's still conversations taking place that they could add further or even subtract to kind of add back of their own players. For example, by acquiring Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty, they no longer have the necessary salary cap space to activate Matt Murray. So he cannot come back off of injury reserve. So now, could Matt Murray end up on long-term injury reserve for the rest of the season? it's possible. I guess we don't really have any reports or any indication to suggest that's going to happen. But that's one thing that could play out that would change things for sure. The other possibility is that the Maple Leafs do make a cost-cutting trade with one of their other players to be able to bring Murray back. So I don't know that they're necessarily going to go out and look to add more players. I mean, they've added a bottom six forward, actually multiple bottom six forwards between Cherry and Lafferty. They've got themselves an experienced number 2, number 3 center, depending on where you want to place someone. Ryan O'Reilly. You got Jake McCabe on the blue line. Like, they've done very well with their additions. They have not given up a prospect like Nyes or Robertson. Yes, they've given up some first-round picks, but still, the team has done well with their deals. I'll give them credit on that front. But like I said, the main thing is around goaltending. They either run with the goaltending they have for the rest of the year, or they move out a player, whether it be Pierre Engvall or now it's Kerfoot, and kind of go from there and bring Murray back in the fold. Now, there's been some rumors about Kerfoot going to Vancouver. I'm not sure if the Canucks would want to do that. I mean, he is a pending unrestricted free agent. If there is interest there, mutually or not, that could be examined in the offseason for Freeze. I'm not sure if the Vancouver Canucks would really want to do the Leafs a favor, or maybe they'll try to get an asset out of them to take a contract on. That's a possibility. But if the Leafs do any more activity, they're going to have no choice but to subtract. And like I said, I think they're going to have to subtract anyways, unless Matt Murray goes to LTIR for the rest of the year. So we'll have to monitor that situation too. And we're waiting on Carolina to make their big move. They're one of the few teams in the East that are near the top of the standings that have not loaded up. We've seen Boston, Toronto, and Tampa all make substantial moves. New Jersey made a big move. Where is the Canes move? There's some talk that maybe a guy like Nick Schmaltz out of Arizona might be a player they'll target for that number 2 center spot. Some reports suggest that that's something they're interested in, and others say that he's not a player on their radar, but that type of player makes a lot of sense for the Canes, who don't typically like to trade for rental players, so we'll have to see where that goes. But the Carolina Hurricanes are definitely a team to watch here coming up. They're going to be interesting, but a lot of the big names already off the market. I'd be shocked if Don Waddell doesn't give this team a boost going into the playoffs. That's for sure. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.